Want to talk to you today about the three ways that we could recognize the voice of inner truth within ourselves. Um, there is a distinction between the voice and inner truth and the voice of false and lies. So in our lives, when growing up, the first thing that happens, how we've been trained to actually learn to not recognize both was pretty much with your parents. If your parents or whoever raised you up say things like, do what I say, not what I do. That right there, that saying right there really breaks down your concept of what the truth is and trying to recognize what truth, or you've seen things in your life that there was hypocrisy growing up. So what does that look like when you now are an adult, right? Three things that happens that you could recognize. First, we got to recognize the false lies within ourselves, and then we're going to go into the truth. The first thing that the truth, the false self and the lies will, what this is the first thing that'll happen. You will speak lies mix with truth. Now, think about that. And I'm going to say this in a different way. You hear this voice, it'll speak truth mixed with lies. So either truth mixed with lies or lies. The bottom line, it's a mixture. And what do I mean by that? What does that look like? Looks like you're justifying, rationalizing the decision that you made, the conscious decision that you made that you were set for. It was based on integrity. Like when you make a decision based on integrity and you start to justify, rationalize why you shouldn't make the decision or why you should make the wrong decision, you're mixing the truth of what you said you're going to do with lies. You know, lies, you could tell lies because it's convincing you to justify your decision. It's like, it's not that bad. You deserve these. These are things that really breaks down the truth. All right, the reality and the facts. The second thing that will help you to recognize the voice of the false self is you start to seek shortcut, right? So the very first thing it speaks lies mixed with truth. The second thing, you're seeking shortcuts. What does that mean? That means you're being seduced for a promise of relief, which creates actually regrets. So your promise of relief, in other words, is like, okay, if you do this, life will be okay. If you be in this relationship, yeah, you're going to be all right. All your troubles are going to be done. But at the end, it creates shame. It creates regret. That's how you could tell. It's very seducing. It just tells you, hey, you know what? Just go ahead and violate your boundary this one time. It's not that bad, right? So that's and the last thing, number three, what it does is it separates and isolates you. That voice leads to separation and isolation. It always goes back to you being alone, you feeling alone, and trying to deal with things on your own. That's the end result of that voice. And what is it doing, really? What is the voice of the lie does? It crafts and it creates a belief that you're not enough, you're not worthy. So you got to start recognizing these steps. You got to recognize, where are you mixing the truth, right? With a lie? Where are you submitting to the promises or relief when it's leading you to shame? Where are you really secluding yourself, separating yourself, and just kind of withdrawing? If you're doing that, then you've listened to that voice. So it's good to trace back, okay, what am I saying to myself that's causing me to do all the above? All right. So here's a few things that I believe we could do in helping us to kind of shed the light of truth. The very first thing with anything that I've seen, as far as any decision making that I do, I must share my secrets and my temptation. I got to be honest. I've got to be honest with my motives. I got to be honest with what I truly want, or what my heart desires, or what my unwanted behavior desires. Because they say you're as sick as your secret, and it's so true. Because what you keep in the dark is what your self-worth is being eaten alive from inside. So, but to trusted friend, right? You want to keep this, give your deepest secret to trusted friend. I've spoken to people that haven't shared anything, like this deep secret. They keep it in a little cage, in a little box, thinking they could just bury it. The thing about things that you don't share, that you maybe you have done or what now, it eats you alive and it's very infectious. And it affects you. What it does, it affects you from seeing the truth, from hearing the truth, because you're holding on, you're lying a little bit, you're mixing all this beautiful truth, but you have that tiny, tiny little piece of lies right there. So it's kind of like I always says, it's like a glass, a clean glass, and you put a little tiny dye of poison in there. You don't think that's going to affect the whole thing? No. Okay. Number one, share the secret with someone safe. Your deepest secret or deepest temptation with someone safe. The second thing, you want to steer away from shortcuts. I told you the promises of a shortcut. Steer away from the shortcuts. She says, well, how do I do that? How do I steer away from the shortcuts? Well, you've got to start to actually discipline, be disciplined, and you got to deal. The reason why we steer away from and we go into shortcuts is because we don't want to feel the pain. We want things, we are feeling pain, we don't know how to deal with it. And what I mean by the shortcuts is the short-term energy relieving behavior, or the overeating, overworking, sex, whatever you're doing to numb that pain, and you're not dealing with the pain, you're going to go in towards a shortcut versus dealing with the pain and sharing the pain and maybe seeking some help, which is my last point as well. The last point, I think, to help you stay in hearing that voice of truth is actually seeking an audience outside of you, seeking maybe a person that's wise outside of you. Because remember, I don't know if I've talked about this, but there's this thing called echo chamber, which means that your thoughts, your belief is in your mind. It's like in a chamber, and it bounces off you. So if it's only you, you're going to only hear your thoughts. You're going to only hear your way of thinking and nothing else. So it's like a chamber, and there's an echo of sounds that's in that chamber. And guess what? It's all your thoughts. It's all your belief, and no one else could change that unless you open the door and you open the window so the sound could go out, and then you invite other people into your mindset to help you to see what your thought process is. It okay? Is it or not? Is it okay? But does this make sense? You know how people say, does this make sense? And most people say yes. But in actuality, if you really get somebody that's going to tell you the truth, they might say it doesn't make sense. I know many times in my mind, when I'm about to make a decision, I think it makes sense to me until I talk to other people, and it helped me make sense, or it helped me to align it with what I truly want, my truth versus what I believe the truth is. All right. Hopefully that helped. And I thank you so much for watching. Please do comment. Again, remember, share your secret thoughts with somebody that is safe, right? Steer away from those shortcuts and start dealing with your heart. And then lastly, you've got to seek some guidance. You got to seek some guidance and just don't rely just on your strength. A lot of people are like I'm self-willed, self-made. There's a lot of self in there. And the problem with that, you're on your own and you're back into that isolation. All right. Thank you so much for watching. You have a good one. And I'll talk to you later.